Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of the Top 8 podcast from OurSpace Media. If you don't already follow us on Instagram, if you don't follow the show, please go ahead and do that on Instagram, on Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube. This is one of those things that it is picking up steam quick, and eventually you're going to be able to say, you know, I was subscribed to them and following them for back before they were huge, you know, just, you know, giving yourselves that bragging rights. It's kind of like going to see My Chemical Romance live.
I was just going to say that.
Back in the 2000s, you know, you'd be like, I listened to the Top 8 podcast when they only had 8 listeners.
And you know what? We respond to everybody and we'll know that you were there from the beginning.
Exactly. We know. We keep notes of this shit, just so you know. I'm Matt Batiste.
I'm TJ, as always.
And I want to start the podcast off with a question. One for TJ and two for the person listening or watching on YouTube. Is decorating your room your background for a podcast based off of the theme of that specific episode the equivalent to wearing a band tee to a concert?
It is, and I don't fucking care. I'm here for it, and I wear that band's merch to their show. I don't give a shit, man.
Now, you know what? That's a whole conversation in and of itself, and I agree with you. I was one of those kids that, like, I would go shopping for a band tee before going to the show, so people knew, like, I'm there for the band. It's like wearing a jersey. I don't understand
exactly
what the big deal is.
It's like you're supporting your team, especially if you've got like some exclusive ass merch from like 20 years ago and you're like, hey, I'm showing this off that I was repping from the beginning and everybody else needs to know.
Totally. It's especially if it's a brag like that. Like, I was at this tour 10, 15 years ago and now I'm here again. But like, still, you know, what's the difference between wearing a team jersey at a sporting event versus wearing the band's t-shirt at their show? I actually think it's worse to wear a different band's t-shirt to their show because it's like you're not at their show. Are you confused?
That's what I always thought too, and then everybody made a big deal about it and I was like, wait, where's this all coming from?
I don't own that many band tees anymore, so I just go and like wear them black or white, but I still don't see the issue with it, but I did have to get that in there for you with the whole Linkin Park
if you couldn't tell what we're talking about today.
Yeah,
we're talking about Linkin Park, baby.
All right, TJ, let's see the tour for the people watching on YouTube. What do we have back there?
Okay, first of all, I've got my old school CDs, Hybrid Theory, Meteora. I've got the Lost Demos, which Amy bought for me a little while ago, so you know, shout out to her. Obviously got the new LP from Zero. We're going to talk about it in detail today. I've got the Funko Pop, Hybrid Theory. I also have the From Zero CD.
Funko Pop. And why do you have the CD, TJ? Tell us. Why did you go and get that CD?
I ordered the vinyl first, and then Matt went and bought the vinyl and got a poster, and I was like, fuck that, I'm going to get the poster too. So I bought the CD as well.
Woo! We're showing off our posters.
What number is yours?
My number is 119.
Ooh, 314. You got I mean, you got it before me. So.
I got the more exclusive one.
Yes, that's the... Oh.
I'm leaving this in. Everyone's going to know that you dropped your neck deep poster.
That was also a very sick tour. But yeah, today we're talking about Linkin Park. So I think we're going to start with a little discussion about the new record.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about the new record before we get into our top 8 Linkin Park songs, just because this new album is so relevant. It just came out on Friday. We've been sitting with it for just a few days. Just, you know, full transparency, we're recording this Monday night after the album got released, so we've only really had 3 to 4 full days with this album, and I feel like we need to talk about it already because it's that strong of a reaction that both of us have had towards it.
It feels like a moment in time, and I don't use that lightly. And that, like, everything that's been going on, like, I think everybody that follows me on Instagram and Threads is definitely sick of me talking about Linkin Park because that's all I've done since, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. But I think people had a lot of reservations for what this album was going to be. I was hesitant on, like, I don't know what the rest of it's going to sound like. I love the singles, but I wasn't too sure. And I think it's safe to say that they've blown me away with this record. I don't know. What are your first impressions?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, when they first announced that Emily was going to be taking over for Chester, I'm not going to lie. I was one of those people
You're
that,
hesitant, right?
well, I think it's like natural for your first instincts
Oh,
to
for
be
sure.
hesitant, right? Because I was hesitant before I even heard anything. And I, once again, it's a natural thing. Like even the Skiba era of Blink, I was like,
Yeah.
it's not the real Blink. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of, when they change band members, especially a singer, it's that important. And with everything that happened with Chester, there's always a little part of you that's immediately, it's like a knee jerk reaction of, it's not the real Linkin Park. It's not
And
the
that's
same
half
thing.
of the comments that I get on my videos now are like, "Oh, it's not Linkin Park. They should have renamed the band." I'm like, "You still have like 4 original members that want to play the songs that they contributed to making. Why would they change the name of the band? This makes
I
zero sense to me."
I think at first, like I didn't even verbalize this because I saw other people verbalizing this and getting eaten alive and being called misogynistic and all of these different things because of that initial reaction. And I don't even think that it was like that reaction, right? Like I never said anything bad publicly about this or about Emily. It was just, you hear, oh, Linkin Park has a new singer. It's a girl. Never heard of this. Never heard of Emily beforehand. And I was just
Right.
kind of like, yeah, I've got my reservations. And then when the new song came out, I'm like, yeah, but let's give it a chance because I think that like it's natural to have those reservations, but it's still
Of
good to keep
course.
that open mind and try things out, right? So I listened to the first single was Emptiness Machine, and I was like, holy, this is an amazing song.
Yeah.
Put aside everything. I was like, this is a great song, and just had it on repeat all day that day, right? And with every single that they released, I'm like, this gets better and better and better. I'm like, I'm genuinely hyped for this album now because the singles have been so good, and I love Emily's voice so much. Like I love this era of
Dude,
Linkin
I do
Park.
too because I feel like she brings kind of like a 90s grunge aesthetic into
Yes.
like the band, which I didn't expect, but like it works so well for them because it feels like it's so rooted in the sounds that they were creating at the time.
There was one song, the end of it, where you can really hear that like 90s alt grunge sound where I was like, you know what? If the guys from Nirvana got together and said, hey, let's bring in Emily to do like to carry on Nirvana for Kurt, I would be okay
It
with
almost
that
would have made
because
sense. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So I'm like, she could really step in. Like, she's like the perfect person for this type of role where you're ushering in a new era and you need to look at it as that, right? It's a new chapter. It's a new era. It's not going to be the past. It's not going to be Chester. Nothing will ever be able to replace Chester, but she's doing it in a respectful way and they're doing it in a respectful way where you can honor the past, still do the past and move forward at the same time, which is crazy because this is one of those things where it's so easy to go wrong. Like this could have
Oh
been
yeah.
a freaking disaster if not done right, but they did it right. And I think you're obviously going to know what direction the both of us are going to be going in with our review of this album. But so far, it's just absolutely blown me the hell away.
Yeah, one of the main things that I said, I put like a little mini review up on my Instagram story and was just like, here's my first impressions. And I think it kind of rung true for a lot of people because I got a lot of responses that were like, oh my God, you put it into words exactly what I was thinking. But basically what I had said was they were kind of taking every era of their past. Like you get songs like Heavy as the Crown and Two-Faced, and they sound like they're straight out of the Hybrid Theory Meteora era. You get a song like Overflow, that's straight off of A Thousand Suns. I gave whatever, or I forget what the IGWA. I have to see the song
I
list
gave you
again.
everything I have.
I gave you everything I have. Thank you.
Everything I have.
Exactly. Yeah. That one sounds like it's
yeah.
straight off like The Hunting Party. Like
Oh, I love it.
they took little pieces of every single era of them, and then they just kind of put like a fresh spin on it for their current lineup, and it all has just like an innately Linkin Park sound, but it's so fresh, and I think that's just like beautiful, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very refreshing.
I think the
But it's all
Emptiness Machine was like a perfect reintroduction to the band too, because they did it in that live setting where it was just like original Linkin Park. It starts off with just Mike, and then like Emily comes onto the stage and she starts doing her part, and it's like it was just like that super good way to like bring her into the band in that live setting. It was a perfect first single for them too.
And this is the perfect comeback album. I honestly like, there's so many good things I have about this, and don't get me wrong, there's going to be some like criticisms that I have about it as well, because nothing is perfect. But
For sure.
you know, I think my biggest complaint about the album is that it's not long enough, which is hilarious, because at first I was like, I love albums that are 30 to 45 minutes, but now I've listened to it so many times on repeat that I'm like, like these songs are all really starting to kind of mesh in with each other. And I want more. I'm like, it feels like there should be more, which is, I guess, isn't the worst thing, because it, like, a good album should leave you wanting more. But
for me, perfect length. 10 songs, just over 30 minutes. That's exactly what I want in an album, because it leaves you wanting a little bit more. Now, I feel like it leaves you wanting a little bit more, and then I feel like you start to get into the 12 to 15 song range, and I'm like, there's fluff here. I don't need fluff. I need a perfect 10 track album, and then save those songs that you think are still good for the next project, or like even put out a deluxe album in a few months with like a few bonus tracks.
No,
something like I don't even care. Like
I hate that shit. Don't do deluxe in a few months. Just drop them all now. Don't do deluxe in a few months.
I'd rather it be a few months than a whole year, though. I hate when it's like a year and they're like teasing something, and then it's just a deluxe from the album they put out in a year ago.
You know what happens? I get so hyped, and I'm only listening to this album right now on repeat, spinning, and then they drop a deluxe with 2-3 songs that I never fucking listen to.
Yeah, fair enough. Save it for the next project then, or do like a little EP or the next album. I know that they're already planning to go into the studio again next year, so it's like crazy follow-up time. But
and we literally secured tickets this morning for Floors. Woo! So super excited for that. I think that will also tell you how we feel about this.
Dude, it's fucking Linkin Park day, man.
It really is. Let's break it down a little bit more and get into this review. A little bit more.
I grabbed the CDs. I have the track list in front of me.
I just pulled up Spotify on my other monitor. What are your 3 top songs so far on this album? Your main takeaways? Yeah,
my top 3, I think, are like 2 of the singles, Two-Faced and Heavy as the Crown, just because they're so Hybrid Theory, Meteora coded for me, that I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted them to put songs out like this, and they did. Like Two-Faced, that's a Meteora song. I don't care what anybody says. Like, so many people are saying that, and it's so good. But other people have been really hating on Overflow, and I fucking love that song. Like,
that's my wife's favorite song on the album.
Oh, really? Okay, that's cool. It's like, it's so 1,000 Suns to me. Like, it has that little like synth rappy type sound, but it's still got some aggression at the end.
It kind of has like a little bit of Radiohead vibes in the beginning, the way it starts.
Yeah, I could see that too, for sure. But yeah, those would be like my top 3. Good Things Go is such like an epic closer for this album. I don't know. There's so many good songs. Like, what are your top 3?
My top 3. I mean, honestly, dude. Okay, I love the singles. Right? Sorry?
Yeah, it's hard to pick. Like, the singles are so good, but even now I'm like, I'll re-listen to it and be like, oh no, Stained is actually like in my top 3. Oh wait, no, Emptiness Machine should be up there. It's so like,
yeah, the Emptiness Machine is just always on repeat, just consistently, constantly, and it's their first single, and like it's just always on repeat. Heavy as the Crown, like of course, like Two-Faced, like those are all the things. And then like I think non-singles that really stuck out to me, I really like Casualty, because that's like a heavy punk song, right? Like
it's more punky for sure.
Yeah, and I really like I Give You Everything I Have.
Me too.
Really like that one. I think my least favorite, and I want to get into this a little bit with you and ask you what your least favorite is. My least favorite is Cut the Bridge. Now, I say this by also prefacing it by, now that it's been 3-4 days, and I just don't skip it. I just listen to the whole album from start to finish, because it's short enough that I don't care to skip it. I'll just listen to it. It's growing on me. Okay, so the song and the hook, it's growing on me, but the first several listens, I was like, the song is corny as hell. I didn't like Mike's rapping on it. It was super corny. I didn't like the hook. It was corny. The snare drum in it was terrible and overpowering. I was just like, this is a bad song. So I was actually, the first time I listened to this album, I was like, I listened to the intro, whatever, it's an intro. Emptiness Machine, okay, we're into a single. Let's see how it's going to flow. And then, all right, here's the first song that I haven't heard yet. Cut the Bridge. Immediately, I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a
Diminished
shit
your
album, and
expectations?
everything
Yeah.
that I thought
Shit.
was going to be terrible, and everything I thought about it being good, like this is, oh no, right?
Yeah.
It was just the singles that were good. The rest is all filler crap. And then got into Heavy as the Crown, got, into it again, and then Over Each Other was great. Casualty, I was like, fuck yeah, this is great. Like I got really hyped on that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the album is just perfect. It was really just Cut the Bridge. It took me a little while to get into. Overflow at first, with that like Radiohead intro, I was kind of like, okay, let's, like, I wasn't hot or cold on it, but the more I listen to it, the more I really love it. So it's really just Cut the Bridge that's grown on me, but still kind of definitely the weakest link in this entire album.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. For me, so I put up, somebody asked me, like, oh, rank the songs. I was like, oh, it's still too early, but I'm going to do it anyways. I put it at the end, and I would say that, like, I don't dislike any song on here. I think that all of the songs are great, but the thing it suffers from is that it's stacked between two really great songs that you listen to Empty Machine, you listen to that one, and then you're back to Heavy as the Crown, and it's like, that's the dip between two extreme highs. So,
and it's
I think
right there at the start.
Yeah, placement on the album is the only thing that's like kind of lacking for this song, but overall it's still a good song.
Yeah, I what do you give this album on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's so tough. Like I really love the ebb and flow of this record too. Like we're really high with Emptiness Machine, bit of a dip, like kind of manage expectations or Cut the Bridge, back up for Heavy as the Crown. Then you get like kind of a softer song and Over Each Other, pick the energy back up with Casualty, and it does that consistently, throughout the end. And one thing that I think is so underrated about this record is it perfectly loops. Have you noticed that? That like
Yes.
good good things go, it starts to pick up at the end and it leads perfectly back into the intro.
I've listened to this album on loop enough times. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I noticed it right away and I was like, oh my god, this just took this record from like a 10 to an 11, just in terms of like paying attention to that sort of like, I don't know, the minor details really set it like, or take it above the bar.
I love when a band pays attention to the details. So on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you have it?
It's so tough because it's still so early, and I don't want to say it's like recency bias. Right now, I have a hard time giving it a perfect 10 out of 10 because I don't like to just give 10 out of 10s off the hop. Like, I think I still want to sit with this for a little while, but it's an easy 9.5 for me out of 10. Like, there's nothing I dislike here. There's maybe some things that like, oh, this song was a bit like, I kind of forgot about it the first time I listened to it. It's not like it initially hooked me, but like overall in the context of the record, it still sounds really good. So it's like, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that's
what about you?
I have mine at an 8 out of 10. And I'm kind of like between 8 and 9. And the two things are, it's not a perfect album because of the things I said about Cut the Bridge. That's the one song I have an issue with. Sure. And then
but 10 songs, every song gets a point, so that's deducting 1 point. Where's this other point coming from?
The other point comes from the point that I made earlier about, I just kind of wish that there was like another 2 songs on this album.
Okay.
Like, and it's just because of the replayability. I can play this whole album twice on one drive. And I kind of wish that there was just a little bit more versatility when you kind of get to that second listen and then you're coming up for your third on repeat and you're like, okay, do I listen to something else now? So like the other day, I literally listened to it on repeat for 4 hours on Sunday as I was running errands. But by that point, I was like, all right, let's put on the new Poppy record and check this out because it's such a great album and I'm still hyped on it. And today it was the first record that I put on, but after listening to it on repeat for so long, I'm like, all right, let's give me something a little bit different. Whereas I think of like that Bring Me the Horizon record from earlier this year, that was like 45 minutes, probably could have done without a song or two, but like that like 40-minute mark is sort of that perfect mark for short enough that you don't get sick of it and long enough that you don't get sick of it. That's kind of that sweet spot for me. So I wish that there was 1 or 2 more songs on it. So that's where I give it an 8 out of 10. But with that being said, I'm curious where you rank it in terms of overall Linkin Park albums.
Yeah, I've been trying to think about this and I think it's still way too early to tell.
Easy third for me.
Easy third? Yeah,
Easy
honestly,
third.
I think after sitting with this for a little while, it's gonna be third for me too. It'll be like uh Hybrid Theory, Meteora, probably this, then 1,000 Suns, Minute to Midnight, and then Living Things, One More Light.
Here's
Oh no, Hunting Party, One More Night. Yeah.
here's the thing with Linkin Park is,
I
and
will
I know
say,
you're
sorry, back to the time, but I feel like I get the same vibe for this that I got with the Knock Loose record. That was a quick 29 minutes, fucking perfect, no fluff. Give me exactly what you want to say, and then leave it alone.
and I agree with that with Knock Loose. That's the perfect length, but that's also a heavy album, and that's just
Okay, yeah, you get
nothing
sick of
but
the sound.
gutturals and for
Yeah,
30
okay.
minutes, whereas this is different. I feel like for a heavy album, yes, 30 minutes perfect of just absolutely knocking your brain, like your skull, and just absolute disgusting heaviness. Whereas this has some of that heaviness, but some of that softerness. So that's where I'm kind of like, yeah, give me like another catchy song or two.
Okay, no, that's actually a fair point. Didn't really think about that. So yeah, good call.
In terms of where I put this at 3, I put it there because I kind of fell off of Linkin Park a little bit after Meteora, because then they kind of went into, Minutes to Midnight and stuff. And, I liked, there were a couple of songs off of that record that I liked, but that was where they kind of went a little bit more into like mainstream radio rock and away
Yeah.
from the heavy stuff and the new metal stuff that I really liked. And I understand why they did it.
For sure.
But, like they wanted to make sure that they were viable for like everybody wants
Longevity.
to get that longevity, right?
Yeah.
That mainstream play, the radio rock, all of that, everyone did it. New metal stopped being cool. The heavy stuff really kind of went out of the way at that point. And also, you want to preserve your voice. So I get that, but that was where I fell off of Linkin Park. And I think a big reason as to why I've never seen them live is because every time they came to Toronto, I was like, I only want to hear Hybrid Theory and Meteora. I don't want to pay for a ticket to go and see all of their new stuff. Then Chester died, and I'm like, damn it, I really regret it.
For sure, yeah.
This is the first album since Meteora that I've thrown on and listened to on repeat nonstop. And this is an album that I've listened to the same way that I've listened to Meteora and Hybrid Theory. So I'm just like, I'm just going to put it there because for me, it's like Minutes to Midnight and a couple of the other ones. They've got a couple of singles that I'll listen to, but when I put on Linkin Park, I'm only putting on the first 2 albums. Now I'm introduced and a couple of singles. Now I'm introducing this whole third album.
That's actually a fair point. Yeah, when I like revisit records, it's always Hybrid Theory, Meteora, and then I have like half of 1,000 Suns, half of Minutes to Midnight, and then like, singles from the rest, whereas this is going to be a full album add into like when I'm, revisiting Linkin Park. So
Like,
that's
I'll
a
straight
good
up
call.
tell you the songs that aren't off of, because I have like 25 honorable mentions on here.
Their
only
entire discography could be an honorable
the only
mention,
songs though that I have on here that aren't from like as honorable mentions that aren't from these albums that we talked about. One More Light. Actually, One More Light's on my list, so I'll wait for that one. But what
Really?
I've done
Is
and
it?
bleed it
Oh.
out. Yeah,
I'm very surprised.
and we'll talk about that. Do you want to get into the list and start talking about the songs or what?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything else you want to say about From Zero, for me, I think that list is like, you can tell that the passion is there, and I'm so here for it. You can see that Mike and everybody else in the band is happy. I'm so happy that they're back. That's all I really wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that they're doing this in a tasteful way that doesn't write off everything that they've done, that honors it and moves them into the future, I think that's where they really hit the nail on the head, and it works.
100%. I mean, even watching that first live stream, like Emily was getting teary-eyed singing songs that she grew up listening to because she was such a fan of Chester too. Like you can see that like passion and that like, I don't know, gratitude is there.
It's not
like,
a cash grab.
Yes, exactly. I can't
Like,
believe
for
I'm
any of
stepping
them.
into your shoes to like be able to sing your songs because I have such a love for them, and I think that love really comes through. Like it's a love letter to the past of Linkin Park to me.
And that's a huge thing, right? The authenticity. Like it's not like if it were a cash grab, we would be able to tell and we'd be like, all right, they're just kind of in it for the money.
I would hope so. Yeah, like this feels very genuine, very authentic to me, and I'm just so happy that they're doing this.
All right, let's jump into the lists. What do you have at number 8?
Okay, so I want to start off by saying I'm a hybrid theory kid. I got fucking the hybrid soldier on my shoulder. So I realistically could have taken all 8 songs from hybrid theory and been happy. Maybe 2 songs from Meteora, but I tried to throw in I put in 1 song from a few of the other records in my 8, 7, and 6 position just to, get some diversity in there. So my number 8 is Blackout from 1,000 Suns. When 1,000 Suns came out, I wasn't huge on it because they went in very different directions. A lot of that big, like the synth anthems, a lot of like dancier type tracks. But this one stuck with me right away because it's like some of Chester's most powerful screams, I find, but it's over this like bouncy fucking key synth beat that you really wouldn't expect. And it's kind of just like a weird duality of like anger and aggression and upbeat, I want to like party energy. And then it kind of pivots at the end and it goes over this like guitar section, but it's super experimental, super cool. So Blackout's always been like my favorite from 1,000 Suns. So I wanted to mention it here.
Yeah, absolutely. Get your diversity in now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Speaking about that, I actually put number 8. I put Emptiness Machine. And
really?
That might be a recency bias, but it's such a strong single to kick off this whole new era. And we just literally spent 25 minutes talking about this whole new era and how excited we are for it. And I had to pick 1 song off of the record. It's the only song from this new record on this list, but honestly, this whole record is just so good that I could have picked any of them and put it in this spot and it would have done the job for what I wanted to accomplish. So I just picked their catchy. I feel like it's their catchiest song on the record in terms of catchiest single.
Is it your favorite song on the record? By this logic, it is.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is, but it's hard, right? Because I also just feel like there are so many that are like kind of like tied. And I think because I've sat on this song for the longest, as of right now it is, and that's probably going to change soon. But for right now, I figured this is a great song to represent this album, and I wanted to put this album in at number 8. And so that's why I put it there. It's just such a great song. I sing every single word now that I've had enough time to sit with it. And I get excited for the start of this album with this song.
No, that's so fair. I didn't put any from Zero songs on here just because of the recency bias. I didn't want to be like, I'm putting this above songs I've been singing at the top of my lungs for 20 years. I respect it for sure. For me, it would have been Two-Faced because that's so like, I don't know, that song was fucking made for me. I don't know what else to say. But I think in a couple years' time, it'd make a list for sure. But for right now, left it off, but strong honorable mention for sure.
I just had to put something on the list and I had to make a decision before we hit record.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, this makes the most logical sense. So this is what we're throwing on.
That's fair. One of my all-time favorite tracks that I don't know if you're going to have anything from this little compilation, but the Numb Encore remix, Linkin Park and Jay-Z at number 7.
You put that on there, eh?
Yeah, Go ahead.
I left that off because I figured it's not technically like a Linkin Park album, but I guess
this project was
is
so cool though. Like this was the last time we as a society knew peace was when Linkin Park and Jay-Z came together to make Collision Course because that little project was so goddamn cool. And anytime I hear this song, I think of like there's a live video of Chester or with Linkin Park performing with Jay-Z and Jay-Z's like up there performing with them. And Chester goes into this crazy scream and Jay-Z's just like his face is like, how the hell are you doing this? Never forget about it. But this song gets me unreasonably hyped up. So I know they do a little bit of it at their shows right now where they're like doing Numb. Then they go into a little bit of the encore and I'm so excited.
That song, I wasn't crazy about it when it first came out. And that's because I was like a hardcore Linkin Park fan and Linkin Park kid. And it was weird because it was like you said, it brought together peace because that was the first time where, and I don't know where a lot of people listening grew up and what the environment was like in your school, but in my school at that time, I was in elementary school. So it would have been middle school for kids in the States. I was in like 7th or 8th grade, and there was a few of us that were like the rockers, and then there was the gangstas, like all the suburban white kids that thought that they were Jay-Z or 50 Cent. And when this compilation dropped, they were all listening to Linkin Park all of a sudden and listening to this mix, and
You
There
didn't like
was a
that?
little bit of peace, but also at the same time, there was a little bit of like, I didn't really like that because I was like, you
Yeah.
make fun of me for listening to this shit, and now you're listening to this shit. No. You don't get to do that. It doesn't get to be
No,
cool. Like, fuck
that's
you.
fair. That's fair. For me, this was like there was a time in my life where I was super into like rap and EDM music too. So like this always kept me tied to like Linkin Park. Like even when I was like listening to mostly rap, I'd still listen to this project. So whether it was a lot of like on the metal side or on the rap side or like whatever, Linkin Park has always been like in that mix, which I absolutely love.
And now that I've grown up and I genuinely love hip hop and rap music, going back and listening to this project, I'm like, well, I did not appreciate this as much as I should. So it's just like, it was just that time of being like a little 12-year-old that got bullied and found solace
Yeah.
in music to like, you know, the attitudes that I had back then versus now. Things totally changed. Like, what an epic project. I can't believe we were around for something like that, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
So that's your
What do
number
you,
7.
that's my number 7. What you got at 7?
My number 7 is One More Light. And the reason why I put it here was this wouldn't have made it if Chester was still here. So this
Yeah.
is like the Chester song. This is like the Linkin Park song. So this is when he died. This was the song that they used for everything. It was, this takes me back to that time when he died. When I hear this song, it has that extra emotional attachment to it, and like suicide prevention and all of these things. So like, this is one of those songs that gets me emotional, and it's one of the few songs off of a record that's not Hybrid Theory or Meteora that I'm just like, what a beautiful and incredible song that I just did not appreciate before he died.
Yeah, it is. So for my number 8 spot, I was between Blackout and The Messenger because there's 2 songs that I just can't listen. Like for a long time after Chester died, I could not listen to Linkin Park. Probably for like 4 years. It was only in like the last couple of years that I really started listening to Linkin Park again. Just because it was honestly just too sad to listen to. Like every time that I listened to them, I was just getting depressed. And there's still 2 songs that I can't listen to, and it's One More Light and The Messenger because they're both so goddamn sad, but they're such beautiful songs. So I get them credit for being like innately touching and emotional and empathetic and just so, heart wrenching, but I still can't listen to them.
I listen to that song whenever I want the goosebumps, you know, like,
Yeah,
and I put it
right.
on the list because it's a goosebump song. And I think everything that comes up next really becomes a goosebump song in one way or another. Maybe not for the same reasons as One More Light, but everything after that, like everything on this list gives me goosebumps. And that was kind of like my qualification for making this list outside of Emptiness Machine, because that song doesn't give me goosebumps, but I wanted to honor it, you know. But everything else gives me goosebumps, and everything that's an honorable mention gets me hyped as fuck, but doesn't give me goosebumps. So that was my test with this, because there's so many Linkin Park songs that have that emotional impact on you.
Totally.
What do you have at number 6?
Number 6, I was between Bleed It Out and Given Up, but I put Bleed It Out on here. It's their set closer for a reason. It's a short ripper of a song. It's got that iconic riff. Like this one and another song that I have later on my list are just 2 of the most iconic riffs I can possibly think of. Like as soon as you hear that intro, you're like, it's go time. I know what this is. It's time to party. Given Up would have been my other one, just because Chester has that like insane 17-second scream in it that I absolutely adore. But this was my shout out to my Minutes to Midnight era, so I had to put it there.
I feel like Bleed It Out and What I've Done were kind of like honorable mentions for me, because this is around the era that I started falling off of them. But of course, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing those songs on the radio nonstop. But they just never really had that same impact for me. So I'm like, honorable mention because of what they are and taking them into that next level of mainstream. But the rest of my list is basically Hybrid Theory and Meteora.
my list is now after that one.
The One More Light and Emptiness Machine are the only outside of Hybrid Theory and Meteora that get that recognition. But at number 6, I have Somewhere I Belong. And Somewhere I Belong is one of those songs that I don't know, like as that 13-year-old kid that didn't feel like they belonged anywhere, like this song really hit home. And I think that's all I really have to say about it. And that's the feeling that I have associated with that song. So that's one that I remember that wasn't really like a huge big single that which was it really like it was a single, no, but it just wasn't a huge big one.
I think it was, but like it was tough to. I think "Faint" was the first single for. I can't really remember, to be honest, but
I thought
like
"Numb" was
Faint
"Numb"
so
and "In the End" were like the two big songs from that whole era on those two songs. Yeah.
It's tough to have anything bigger than "Numb" for sure. I have "Somewhere I Belong" later on my list, but I will just say like the lyrics were so poetic for a teenage angsty me. Like, I want to heal, I want to feel. Or I want to feel what I thought was never real. I want to let go of the pain I felt so long. I want to find something I wanted all along, somewhere I belong. Like that fucking.
Yeah. And like, I feel like everybody who grew up listening to this type of music, we do it because we feel this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, sure, maybe some people like it just because, you know, oh, it's heavy, it's loud, and I'm like angry, and they're listening to it for different reasons. But I feel like majority of people that grew up listening to emo music,
you feel like an outcast, and
you
genuinely want a place to belong. Like,
that's the whole vibe. That's the whole scene and the whole culture, and the reason why we like unify and find commonality. Right? That's the way we think. So that's my number 6. What do you have at number 5?
That is a great pick. My number 5 is "Faint." It was like this and "Bleed It Out" had to be like the most hype songs in their discography. Just like so much energy, makes you get off on your feet, like jumping around. And then just screaming the "Don't turn your back at me, I won't be ignored" is just like, so like, I'm going to prove to you that I'm worth like your attention. I'm worth you giving a shit about me. And I think that like that says so much. And then my number 4 was "Somewhere I Belong," because that's like that similar vibe of like, I want to fit in, I want to belong, like I want to be here, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, these songs are just fucking iconic. Get emotional over here talking about them.
Right? This is an intense episode over here. I knew it was going to be. I knew it because if you look at my list, I literally have like 20 of these. Like, come on.
I know.
I'm just gonna rip through a couple of honorable mentions now before I get into my 5 and 4. But yeah, I've got "Bleed It Out," "What I've Done," "One More Light," "Lying from You," "A Place for My Head," "Crawling."
Oh, "A Place for My Head" is in your honorable mentions. Damn.
Yeah, dude. "Paper Cut" is a huge honorable mention for me. So those are my honorable mentions.
Mention too. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. But my number.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say some honorable mentions for me too. "Crawling" I didn't put on my list as much. I had it on here and I was like, oh, I'm gonna try to get some diversity in there. Same with You, also from Hybrid Theory. "Lying from You" from Meteora, so goddamn good. And then, like I said before, "The Catalyst" and "The Messenger," both really good songs from 1,000 Suns.
My number 5 might even be higher on your list. "One Step Closer."
Yeah, we can talk about that now because that's my number 3, which will be like the next one coming out for me.
"One Step Closer" for me is that perfect song. You're just angry at the world, and you just put it on, and this is that song you put to 11. You know, like I remember just like having a bad day and putting like trying to blow out my headphones, trying to blow out the speakers in the car.
Yep.
And just, what's that? Like just screaming to the song, and that was a therapy session in and of itself. Like just screaming that at the top of your lungs.
Especially as like a teenager, you don't want to get in trouble for swearing. So the "shut up when I'm talking to you" is like just edgy enough that you're screaming it, but you don't feel like you're going to get in trouble.
And this was one where like I screamed this one. Like I was trying to lose my voice. Like it was like every single little ounce of energy that I had, every gasp of air in my lungs was just like blown out from this one because it was So that's where I have that.
I put it on my list of greatest song intros of all time because it's like that starting riff is just like, it's go time. Like I've seen 2 or 3 bands now.
I'm breaking shit.
Oh yeah. Like I've seen 2 or 3 bands now cover it live and I get like something just comes over me and I can't control myself. So now that I have the opportunity to hear the original band play this song live, I don't even want to think about what's going to go down when this song
Throwing
starts.
elbows. Throwing elbows.
Going hard as fuck.
This is
Watch out.
is the Linkin Park version of Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff.
It is, for real. 100%.
At number 4, I have Figure 09.
Oh, sick.
Figure 09 was like a top 3 song on Meteora for me. So that's why I have that there. It was always Faint, Numb, and Figure 09. There was something about Figure 09 that always stood apart that I was like,
it's so
this
good.
could potentially be one of my favorite Linkin Park songs. And it was always like that, right? So Figure 09's at number 4.
That one and From the Inside are so underrated from that record. Like, I don't see a lot of people talking about
So
those two
underrated.
specifically, and they're so good.
And I think that's why I have it so high too. Like, that was one of my favorite songs as a kid, and it's super underrated. Nobody talks about it, I guess because it's not a single. But yeah, it's just one of those songs where I'm just like, you're sleeping. Like, so many people are sleeping on this song.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough because there's so many good songs on that record. Like, even like, it's so good, but like, you go Numb, Faint, Breaking the Habit, Somewhere I Belong. Like, those are the 4 like big. I kind of forgot about Breaking the Habit now that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I did too.
But yeah, then you have the underrated tracks like From the Inside, Lying From You, and Figure 09, and then whatever else is on that record. I can't think now, but like, oh my God. I mean, they have 2 perfect records.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to pick songs from any of them. So like, there's no wrong answers here.
No. And see, with Figure 09, I mean, I have it above One Step Closer and Somewhere I Belong. So I'm like, that's how much I loved that song growing up, and how it's one of my favorites on the record that nobody talks about. So I'm glad that we're able to talk about how much that song is slept on.
100%. You want to do your number 3 too while you're there?
My number 3 is where I put In the End.
Oh, okay.
And maybe some
it's
people...
It's probably the biggest new metal song of all time. Like, it's undeniably great.
And yeah, it's their biggest song, clearly. And I don't really know what more to say about it. It was like, even if you didn't like Linkin Park or rock music, you knew this song, you loved this song. Yeah. And it has that emotional factor to it. But I think because it was such an emotional factor to me as a kid too, that it's almost like a relationship type of, in the end, it doesn't even matter. I tried so hard and got so far. But like, I think as a kid, maybe I associated that with like my stupid childhood relationships so much that I'm just like, now it kind of feels like a kid's relationship song. So I'm like, it's still a banger that I'm going to sing every single word to. And it's one of their catchiest, if not their catchiest songs. But like, the other 2 songs that are above it, I just find are catchier, or like I've just enjoyed more over the years. And I'll put the other 2 songs on before I put on In the End.
That's fair. This is like I said, undeniably their biggest song, and it's always gonna be that song that you sing along to no matter what. I actually didn't put it on my list because I have personal favorites that I just like. When I'm listening to the record, I'm like, this song is for me. Where like In the End was like for everybody, but some of these other songs, I'm like, this is for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's just it too. Like, In the End, I'm surprised you don't have it on your list at all. Like, I had to put it up high.
That's why I tried to cut some stuff. It could have been like, it would have been definitely in the 8 because I could have picked 8 songs just from Hybrid Theory, but I tried to do the diversity, and such a strong honorable mention though.
This is their Smells Like Teen Spirit.
It is. Yeah. 100%. Yep.
So yeah, that's that. What do you have at number 1 and 2?
You want me to do both?
Well, you can go with 2 and I'll go with 2.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say my number 2 is Paper Cut, and basically because I credit it as probably the first Linkin Park song I ever heard that made me say like, hey, what is this band? I need this in my life like right now, because my first experience with like really recognizing music that I wanted to be like a part of myself was, hanging out with a friend, and then his dad put on this record, and I remember it started, and I'm like, what the hell is like, what is this? It like changed everything for me. So I credit that as like, this was probably the first Linkin Park song I ever heard. That iconic intro is just like, it starts, and I'm like, it's fucking go time. It kicks off the record. It's so good.
Yeah, Paper Cut was one that I kind of wanted to put like One Step Closer / Paper Cut, because mentally I put them in that same sort of sphere. But One Step Closer just gets me a little bit more hyped than Paper Cut does, but they're both kind of like, I associate those 2 mentally as the same.
Yeah, that's fair because they're 1 and 2 on the start of the record, and it's just
Mhm.
like back to back, your banger after banger.
My number 2 is where I put Numb.
Okay.
Numb immediately takes me back to like the 7th or 8th grade whenever that came out. It's so freaking catchy. After all these years, it's just held up so well as a single that like if that song comes on, I'll sing that and scream that one louder than In the End.
I was gonna say, actually, I think Numb might be their biggest song of all time. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought In the End would be, but like I regardless, I think they're both kind of held up to that same esteem. But Numb is one of those songs that it's one of their biggest and best singles for a reason, and still to this day, if that song comes on, I'm going crazy.
Yeah. Oh, Numb In the End is bigger by like 400 million streams. It's like 2.3 billion to 1.9 billion. But
The insanity.
Crazy. I know. Also don't have Numb on my list. I think it's like the same kind of thing as In the End.
But you
it's
put the
like,
Jay-Z. You put the Jay-Z on there.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So that
yeah,
counts,
100%.
I feel.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's giving the nod to the song, but I also like the little remix version. But I mean, it's iconic no matter what version you're playing. It's undeniably great.
What did you put at number 1?
My number 1 was A Place for My Head, which is why I was so sad that you had it as an honorable mention.
Oh, okay. Why A Place for My Head?
Yeah. I mean, I like it starts off with like the bass intro one. Also, I just love a good bass section, first off. And then it gets right into Mike's rapping, which I also like. I just loved Mike's rapping so much on that first record for some reason. But the little spoken word section where it like builds and builds and builds into the breakdown, like you try to take the best of me, go away. Very similar to One Step Closer and Somewhere I Belong. Just that like, I'm going to prove something to you. I'm going to make you pay attention to me. I'm worth your time and energy. Like, I don't know. That just like speaks to me so much. And specifically, I remember watching Chester's memorial concert and they fucking brought out Jeremy McKinnon from A Day to Remember to come out and do this song with them, this was already what like my favorite song of all time. And then like a collision of worlds, one of my favorite vocalists, fucking A Day to Remember doing that song. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. So I don't know. This one is always just like, I think it's just like a super underrated gem. It's not everybody's favorite. But it's mine. It's always been mine. They're playing it on the tour right now. They're kind of swapping it out from one of the other songs. And I'm like,
ooh, I really hope they play it at the Toronto show then.
Toronto, yeah. Mike, anybody in the band, if you're listening, please fucking play this in Toronto.
My number 1 is Faint. And nice. Faint was kind of like came out around the same time as Numb, and Numb always made me go crazy, but there was something about Faint. It was the heaviness, it was the rapping, it was just like the energy of that song that was like different, because like Numb was like the radio single and it was like the MTV version from that album, and then there was Faint for like, it felt like even though that was still a single, it was like that was for the Linkin Park fans and Numb was for everyone else. You know, very similar to In the End. That's a song for everyone else, and then this one's for you. So, like, Faint felt like the Linkin Park fan single, and that was always one that, like, if I put on the CD and I only had time to listen to one song, I was skipping through the Discman right to get to Faint, because I'm like, I'm just going to listen to this for 2 minutes, and then we're going to run into the doctor's or the grocery store or wherever we're going, right?
Yeah,
so,
100%.
Faint is definitely number 1 for me, because it has just enough of that single and like mainstream success, but also it was the single and mainstream song for the Linkin Park fans.
Yes. Yeah, no, honestly, that's a great, I'll say there's no wrong answers here. Like, they have such a deep, iconic discography. You could put any 8 songs here and be like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
you can justify any of their songs. Like, this is actually like the one where I just threw up their discography on Spotify and I had a Word doc and I'm like, all right, yeah, that song, that song, that song. And that's typically what I do is I'll compile like a big list of everything that I want to include and then try to rank them. And I was just like, I got to add this song. I got to add this song. I got to add this song. I got to add this song.
I know, right?
I got their whole discography here.
I know.
How am I going to rank this?
I was just sitting on the couch before we were recording and I was like, oh, actually, we're going to do Linkin Park songs tonight. And Amy was like, oh, that's easy. I was like, are you kidding me? This is 8 songs. songs from Linkin Park's discography. That's the
we
hardest
need
thing
a
I'm ever
guest
gonna have to do.
appearance from your wife and bring her in. What is the easy 8 from Linkin Park? Please,
I think
someone
she
tell
meant
me.
easy because like I love the band so much. She's like, oh, that'll be easy for you, but I'm like, no, it's so much harder because I loved so much of their fucking songs.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. All right, so
Yeah.
now I want to hear from everyone else. What is your Linkin Park top 8? What is your favorite song? What song did we not include in our list that you took personal offense to?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's plenty.
That's what I want to know. And let us know in the comments what you think about the new Linkin Park album, because I'm curious. That
From
one's kind of
Zero,
getting
it's,
some mixed reviews. Clearly, we like it. We love it. So I'm curious to know what you at home or in your car are thinking about the new album.
Yeah, my feed has been an absolute whirlwind of listen to new Linkin Park. This shit sucks. Oh, listen to Linkin Park. This is the greatest album of all time. Like so much back and forth that I'm like, there's so much like discourse in the Linkin Park community, or even people checking it out for the first time and be like, this isn't for me. I'm like, that's fair. Like, I understand, especially fans of people, specifically Chester, that are like, Chester can't be replaced. I'm like, absolutely agree. Nobody's ever going to replace Chester, but that's not what they're trying to do.
And I think that's where the discourse comes from, right? Because I feel like some people can mentally separate the two and other people can't. And I said that in the beginning, right? It was like in the beginning, that was my first initial reaction, was like, I couldn't separate it until I actually heard it being separated. And I'm like, oh, this shit fucking rips. And this is going to be a whole new era. It's something different while honoring the past. But like, I also understand that some people mentally can't wrap their heads around that. And that's fine too. You know, there's still old Linkin Park. You can still throw on Hybrid Theory or Meteora or whatever else you want to throw on. But I think for the fans that are okay with this and happy with this, what an incredible project.
Oh my God, yeah.
So happy to see such a legendary band come back and be able to do this, because it's really rare that bands are able to do this and to this level and in this way.
100%. I'm just so happy that we have an opportunity to hear some of these songs live again from like the original members that, you know, created them and have that passion for them. And I'm just so stoked. Honestly, August 8th just can't come soon enough.
I know the hype.
I'm already listening to the set list like daily.
I'm gonna have to refresh and get hyped up before the show, but
I know, right?
That's the show for today with the top 8 Linkin Park songs. Please remember to follow us, subscribe to us, rate and review us, and follow us on social media as well. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Top 8 podcast, and I'll let TJ take it away.
We'll see you next week.